Hello and welcome to Mad About Superheroes Cartoon Showcase. Thanks for joining me in my quest to bring meaning back to Saturday mornings. Today we are going to revisit one of my favorite episodes of the classic 80s cartoon series, ThunderCats. More specifically, the Pumm-Ra episode, written by Julian P. Gardner, who also co-wrote a few other episodes in the series as well. Though ThunderCats was ready for release in 1983, for some reason it was held back for 2 years, premiering in 1985. The series broke new ground in animation in the US, being one of the first to feature Japanese animators at a time before anime was popular. Though Robotech and the extremely popular Voltron Defender of the Universe were comparable in style and aesthetic, they were American dubs of pre-existing Japanese shows. For anyone in need of a refresher, ThunderCats are superheroic cat people that flee from their dying homeworld, Thundera. They end up on Third Earth and battle the evil Pumm-Ra, as well as the mutants Slithe, Jackalman, and Monkeyan, among others. The ThunderCats consist of their young lord Lion-O, as well as the swift Cheetara, the mighty Panthro, and the cunning Tigra. The Thunder Kittens, Wily Kit and Wily Cat, Snarf, and their wise mentor Jaga.
My father first talked to me about it fairly early. He said, "What do you think of ThunderCats?" And I said, "ThunderCats? What is a ThunderCat?" And the first thing I remember him telling me was I had this idea for a series that involved superhumans that had the form of cats, what parts of them were going to be animal, what parts of them were going to be human. And he would put that down when he pitched it. And it was kind of like you say, ThunderCats, ThunderCats, ThunderCats. And after a while, it really started saying, yeah.
As the day dawns on Third Earth, the adopted home of the ThunderCats, Cheetara, out for her morning run, is ambushed by the villainous mutants Monkeyan and Jackalman. The vile mutants are mere pawns in the evil Pumm-Ra's plan to infiltrate the ThunderCats' home, Cat's Lair, by disguising himself as a native of their homeworld, Thundera, named Pumm-Ra. A ruse concocted in order to steal the ThunderCats' greatest source of power, the legendary Sword of Omens. In disguise as Pumm-Ra, Pumm-Ra tricks Cheetara into believing he rescued her from the mutants. He convinces her that he's also a survivor of their dying homeworld. With Cheetara at his side, Pumm-Ra is introduced to the ThunderCats, and their young lord Lion-O is overeager to express gratitude to Pumm-Ra and welcome a fellow Thunderian to their home and possibly join as a new member of the ThunderCats. However, the more seasoned members of the team, such as Tigra and Panthro, are a bit more skeptical of Pumm-Ra. Their skepticism is backed up by the spirit of the ThunderCats' wise mentor, Jaga, who suggests that Lion-O be not too hasty in his decisions and listen to his peers. They propose Pumm-Ra live among them on a trial basis, but that gives Pumm-Ra all the time he needs to obtain his objective and get his hands on the Sword of Omens and the Eye of Thundera embedded in its hilt. The mutants receive their signal to aid Pumm-Ra. When Lion-O learns the sword is missing from its cradle, he tries to call for help using the Thunder Tank's radio, but he's confronted by Pumm-Ra, who now wields the Sword of Omens. Lion-O inquires why Pumm-Ra would betray them, and the answer is a simple one. Power, control, he wants it all. However, Pumm-Ra learns a crucial lesson about the power of the Sword of Omens. The Eye of Thundera cannot be used for evil purposes, and is useless in the hands of the wretched villain. Meanwhile, the mutants have taken control over the ThunderCats' Thunder Tank and turn its cannons on Lion-O. With the Sword of Omens back in the hands of its rightful owner, the Lord of the ThunderCats summons his loyal companions.
Thunder! ThunderCats!
And when the Thunder Tank's cannons jam, Lion-O uses the opportunity to cut Slithe down to size, and Panthro uses his immense strength to eject the mutants from the Thunder Tank. The mutants retreat when they're outclassed by the ThunderCats. Pumm-Ra has taken over Cat's Lair and uses its defenses against the ThunderCats. While Tigra sneaks inside through shallow tunnels, the other ThunderCats fight from outside the lair. Eventually, they're able to force their way into Cat's lair. Tigra gets to Pumm-Ra first. He's soon backed up by his teammates. A cornered and outnumbered Pumm-Ra reveals his true form as Pumm-Ra, the ever-living. Like the cowering mutants, Pumm-Ra admits defeat and also flees. The Pumm-Ra episode is notable for its continued focus on Lion-O's growth as Lord of the ThunderCats. In the debut episode, Exodus, Lion-O is a young boy that ages several years inside a suspension capsule during space travel, before arriving on Third Earth. Though he's grown physically, his mind has a lot of catching up to do. Although overzealous at times, Lion-O has an inherent desire to honor the noble code of Thundera. In this episode, he's initially a bit naive, and he's too trusting of Pumm-Ra. With the aid of his fellow ThunderCats, Lion-O learns the unfortunate lesson that sometimes trust can be risky business. The only thing that ever bugged me about this episode was the name Pumm-Ra. If you're the ThunderCats' arch nemesis and you're going to disguise yourself as a native of their homeworld, Thundera, then why choose a name so close to your actual name? Pumm-Ra and Pumm-Ra. It's just one letter away from your actual name. But I digress. While some shows of the era tagged on a PSA at the end of an episode to teach kids a valuable lesson, ThunderCats featured the lesson as part of the story. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe also featured a lesson within the episode story, but had a recap at the end of the episode. I love both He-Man and ThunderCats, but I prefer the ThunderCats approach without the recap. The recap on He-Man treats kids as if the lesson needs to be pointed out to them, while ThunderCats expects kids to be able to follow the story and pick up on the lesson without it being reiterated to them. The totally awesome ThunderCats theme song was composed by Bernard Hoffer, with assistance from James Lipton of Inside the Actors Studio. As mentioned on a previous video, the ThunderCats theme song and intro remain my absolute favorite to this day. The ThunderCats features a very talented cast of voice actors, such as Larry Kenney as Lion-O. Kenney also voiced Jackalman, and besides being cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Kenney also voiced Bluegrass on the Rankin Bass related series Silverhawks. Earl Heyman as Panthro. Heyman acted in front of the camera as well. He played the father of Cliff Huxtable on The Cosby Show. Peter Newman as Tigra. Newman also voiced Wily Cat and Monkeyin. Lane Lipton as Cheetara and Wily Kit. Lipton also voiced a personal favorite recurring character, Mandora the Evil Chaser. Earl Hammond as Pumm-Ra the Ever-Living and Jaga. And last but not least, Bob McFadden as Snarf. Love 'em or hate 'em, Snarf is a tried and true 80s cartoon trope of annoying characters, inserted for comedy relief, but rarely achieved the desired effect, although Snarf isn't as annoying as some of the others of the era. In my opinion, Larry Kenney is as iconic in the role of Lion-O as Alan Oppenheimer as He-Man or Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime.
I'm aware of how big a hit it was going to be when I went to Toys R Us to get something, and they had installed an entire row of ThunderCats stuff. I'm walking down the aisle thinking, thank goodness it's a voiceover job where they can't recognize me, or else all these kids would be, idolizing me and, wanting my autograph and stuff. Anyway, this one kid says, I'm going to get the Jackalman. What are you going to get? And he says, I'm going to get the Pumm-Ra. I couldn't help myself. I said, why don't you get Lion-O? He comes with a sword of omens. Come to my hand. I walk away and the kid says, he doesn't even sound like Lion-O. And I'm laughing. I'm thinking, if you only knew, kid.
ThunderCats was a multimedia sensation, which included, among other things, a line of toys from LJN.
Big Pumm-Ra, take that!
ThunderCats, Pumm-Ra and Lion-O with light-up eyes. ThunderCats. Each sold separately, new from LJN.
And a monthly Marvel comic book. The ThunderCats comic book series often adapted stories from the cartoon series, and the Pumm-Ra episode was one such story. Written by Laura Hitchcock, adapted from the teleplay by Julian P. Gardner, and illustrated by Ernie Colin, the Marvel Comics version is a bit different from its cartoon counterpart. For example, the cartoon opens in Cat's lair with Panthro and Tigra surveying the area. The comic, like my summary, skips over this detail. The cartoon's climactic battle has the ThunderCats locked outside of Cat's lair, with Pumm-Ra attacking them from within. Panthro scales the wall of the lair, and Pumm-Ra summons a creature to attack Panthro. The comic cuts this detail as well. The cartoon shows Tigra using his invisibility and subduing Pumm-Ra before all the other ThunderCats arrive. The comic depicts Pumm-Ra overpowering Tigra, but he retreats when he's surrounded by the ThunderCats. These changes are arbitrary and don't alter the overall story, but interesting enough to make note of. The comic was under Marvel's kid-friendly Star imprint, which also produced adaptations of Star Wars Droids, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and Silverhawks, among many others. With all the old-school IPs being made into films over the past few decades, it's amazing that ThunderCats hasn't made its big-screen live-action debut already, although it has been in development hell for years. Hollywood reboots, remakes, and reimaginings don't have the best track record, so maybe the fact that a ThunderCats live-action film hasn't made it to the big screen isn't such a bad thing. However, a reboot series debuted on Cartoon Network in 2010. Though I wasn't all that impressed with the character designs, the story respected the original series, and managed to have enough originality to stand on its own. The basic plot of ThunderCats holds strong, especially for the first season, which served as the basis for a vast array of stories that freely mixed elements of science fiction and fantasy into a traditional good versus evil tale that steadily introduced more and more recurring allies and villains into the world of the ThunderCats. Futuristic technology is just as central to the series as magic and myth. But even in the midst of all this action, the series never underemphasized the importance of moral values in solving problems. ThunderCats was a great show in the 80s, and it's a great show today.
Cats fans, from all of us who did the show, thank you for being such great fans and for enjoying what we did, being appreciative of what we did. ThunderCats! Ho!
Thanks so much for tuning in and letting your geek flags fly with Mad About Superheroes.